senior Supreme Court advocate Dushyant now joins us on this broadcast. Mr. Dave, are you hopeful that what the Supreme Court has said, the bench today, led by Justice Chandrachud, would then become a precedent, and this business of having multiple FIRs for the same alleged crime in different centers, that would now come to a stop?
No, I don't think so at all. Supreme Court has been saying so for maybe 40 years, 50 years, that jail is an exception and bail is a rule. But the executive doesn't follow, the police doesn't follow, and subordinate judiciary certainly doesn't follow. So I don't think this is going to make any impact at all. Unfortunately, I must say, Rahul, one thing. It's a matter of great, I think, satisfaction that Supreme Court did what it did today. And one feels really proud of the Supreme Court, and one feels reassured to somewhat extent that Supreme Court is truly a custodian of citizens' fundamental rights. But at the same time, coming from judiciary, I've been a lawyer for 43 years, I feel very sorry that subordinate judiciary doesn't care a damn about Supreme Court's judgment or the Constitution or the laws. And they do exactly what executive wants them to do, namely send innocent people behind bars.
But while the Supreme Court did give Zubair bail finally, it had to come to the Supreme Court, and everybody doesn't have the likes of Rinda Goba to argue for them, which gets the matter heard before the right bench, manages to get an interim bail order. This also seems to suggest that down the line, whether it's a high court or a lower court, when they are required to step up to the task and ensure that multiple FIRs aren't lodged, what's very clearly a case of harassment, it's never nipped in the bud. It comes down to the highest court in the land for the court to come out and give this kind of an interim bail order.
You are absolutely right. I mean, there is no doubt, let us understand one thing, that the political executive has its own agenda. I mean, everybody must understand in a democracy that political executive doesn't like dissent. But it is the duty of the judiciary which really must step in to protect the citizens' fundamental rights and basic civil liberties. And that is where I do feel that subordinate judiciary really needs to wake up and protect it so zealously that the police and the political masters get a message that any illegal arrest the judiciary is not going to tolerate. Now that's not happening. As you rightly said, how many people can come to the Supreme Court? And how many people will get their matters listed? How many people can get a bench which is going to be so, conscious of the fundamental rights of citizens as Justice Chandrachud's bench is? So there are, serious, I would say, ifs and buts in, protecting the liberties of the citizens. And large number of citizens, whether they are journalists, whether they are activists, whether they are lawyers, or whether they are film producers, as the gentleman has been picked up yesterday from Bombay. I mean, they are just being arrested, or that lady Chitale who was arrested for some tweet against Mr. Pawar. I mean, it's a disgrace. Men like Pawar should have stood up and said, release her. You can't arrest her. So, I don't know. There is something fundamentally wrong with our political executive who are interested in punishing citizens for nothing. I mean, these kind of tweets should not be misunderstood. Everybody has a right to criticize. Everybody has a right to poke fun of our politicians. That should not be treated as some kind of an offense.
Very important what you are saying. I thank you for joining us, Dushyant Dave. I want to go across to Sanjay Hegde, joining us on this broadcast. Mr. Hegde, are you at all hopeful that a message has gone out about these multiple FIRs? It's happening across the political spectrum, whether it is the Chhattisgarh police and government acting against an anchor whose report they didn't like and which was factually incorrect, or the arrest of Mohammed Zubair. If the political executive of the day doesn't like what you're doing, this business of having multiple FIRs seems to be becoming the norm rather than the exception, and arrest at the first instance, even without allowing for an investigation to play itself out, where the process itself becomes the punishment. How do we stop this?
Well, the only way you would stop it is if you go after not only the policeman, but the minister in charge who authorizes such things. These are what the Supreme Court today has done is a major welcome step. But if you think that the executive of the day has taken a message, it may have taken an entirely different message. It may say, look, we have managed to keep him inside for at least 23 days. It required the Supreme Court to come in. So as Mr. Dave said, that when your first line of defense, the magistracy and sometimes even the high courts do not grant relief, then it becomes almost mandatory that the person comes to the Supreme Court and then gets bail. So I welcome what happened today, but it is neither the beginning of say light at the end of the tunnel, nor is it the end of tyranny. You speak of multiple FIRs. Now, it's not as if this was a case where the same tweet was complained of in different places. Different tweets were complained of in different places, and so technically it was right that each was a separate cause of action and therefore a separate complaint. What prevents India from being a police state is a strong judiciary. The moment the judiciary appears not to be as zealous of fundamental rights, that the descent to a police state becomes almost very speedy. The policeman, in a case like this, supposing it had been a high court which had directed that at least within Uttar Pradesh all the FIRs be curbed and all that, would have simply said no, now we'll challenge it in the Supreme Court. Or if a release had been ordered, there are other provisions of law which could also have been brought in, or maybe yet another set of FIRs. I don't want to give people ideas, but I do think that there needs to be a fundamental change in executive thinking, and that can only happen if people also take this into account when they vote.
Absolutely, you have to
there
take
has
this
to be a
seriously
cause.
For the simple reason that no matter who the person, whether it's a journalist, an activist, a politician or an ordinary citizen,